to see if I've already had a transition meeting on this child when they turn 3. I verify that you're dressed to make sure that they're not a Vidalia City student or Montgomery County student, because even though the address may say Toombs, it may be someone else. But that's how we start our process. And if you'll turn to the pillars. Okay, these are some things we'll be looking at today. Child outcome summaries, disproportionality, self-determination, and parent engagement. And we'll start with the outcomes. And if you'll reported child outcomes, if you'll turn to that one. Okay, and those are our 3 outcomes that we look at. And when students enter our program, we complete a COS, and then when they exit us, outcome number 1, positive social, emotional relationship skills. And that includes relating with adults, relating with other children, and then following rules related to group or interacting with others. And especially the last one, following rules related to groups or interacting with others, is a big part of what we do during our school day in PIP. A lot of children, this is their first experience coming to school. Even if they've gone to a daycare, the role of daycare is a little bit different than what ours is. So we're teaching children to get along with one another, to take turns. A biggie would be sharing. Outcome number 2, acquiring and using knowledge and skills. And these are your thinking and reasoning skills, remembering and problem solving, understanding symbols. Communication plays a big part in this. And then understanding the physical and social world. And we do all of this through play, language experience, and interacting with one another. And our 3rd outcome, taking appropriate action to meet needs, taking care of basic needs like hunger, dressing, feeding, toileting, contributing to your own health, following rules, assisting with hand washing, and getting from place to place, the mobility kind of things. And with us, and I'm sure it's with you, every routine is teaching. We have some children that we're working on maybe drinking from a cup, or we're learning to use a spoon, those kinds of, or requesting, just asking for what to have their needs met. Does anyone want to share anything about our 3 outcomes?
Well, I have a question for the group.
Okay.
So I'm on a state work group right now on how you measure these outcomes. I would like to know what tools you guys are using to measure your 3 outcomes. I may be going ahead of the game, I'm sorry, but I'm just curious.
Well, that's my next step.
Okay.
And I'll go back a little bit. Say you have a child that's coming from Babies Can't Wait. When they enter that program, they are assessed through what the AEPS, Assessment and Evaluation and Programming System. Birth to 3. There's a 3 to 6 component as well. And then if they're in Babies Can't Wait longer than 6 months, you do the same test. And I put a picture of it right here. And you're going to look at all the areas. It's broken down into fine motor, gross motor, adaptive skills, cognitive skills, social communication, and then social skills. And I use this when students enter the PIP program. sometimes it's a part of the evaluation process when we're testing for PIP, or I may do this after they get into the program with us. And also in your handout, you'll have this. And the reason I like using the AEPS, their skills are broken down into the 3 goal areas. And you rate the students, 0 for not at all. A 1 says they're may can do it with some prompts, or they may do it at home, but maybe not at the daycare. So just to give you an example of the social communication, things with the AEPS that are listed there are like turns and looks towards person speaking, follows a person's gaze to establish joint attention, gains person's attention and refers to an object, person, or event. Still under goal 1, but a different area is the social. Responds appropriately to familiar adults' effect. Imitates and maintains interactions with familiar adults. Initiates and maintains communicated exchanges with familiar adults. Responds to social routines. Initiates and maintains interactions with peers. Initiates and maintains exchanges with peers. And what I do is I rate these 0, the 1, or the 2. Then I add them up. And for example, there are 10 items listed under goal 1. And so if the child scored a 2 in every area, that's going to be 20. And you're going to divide that by the 10. And so you go down to your chart down here, and a 2, you would score that child a 7 because they're doing, and with a 7, that means they're doing it across settings, maybe the daycare, the home, the school, whatever, and then people too. And so I just feel that that's a good way for me to assess and have a valid score for my kids.
Okay, question. Is anyone using the ECTA materials?
Now, I'm not familiar with that.
You're not familiar with ECTA? The early child. Yeah, you guys are not familiar with that? Okay. All right, so that's going to be our next. We'll go through this presentation because Nicole, that's what she wanted. Nicole Talley is the program specialist from the DOE. But yeah, we need to go over those materials and show you how to use those because they correlate straight with how you're going to report for the DOE.
We do use those, Kathleen.
Okay, who's that? I can't see.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Well, we were in the trainings that
I did.
Right.
Okay, so those of you who use those, how does that help you align your data reporting?
It aligns directly to it. I mean, and I think it's easy because Babies Can't Wait that we work with, they use the same materials that we use. So at the exit, whenever they do their exit interview, then it helps us with our entrance forms, so it really aligns well that way.
All right, if you're a district who uses the ECTA materials, can you write the name of your district in the chat box for me?
Kathleen, tell me what you're saying or spell that for me.
It's the ECTA. Hold on. Am I saying it right? Yeah. It's the the ECTA Center, the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center. That's the materials that the DOE's been wanting you guys to use. Lynn, you were in the training too. All right, so is Bullock the only district using those?
Right. Now going back to like Babies Can't Wait, this is what they use for their entrance and exits is the AEPS. Because this came from them from training with the ECTA a few years back.
Yeah, so that is ECTA, it's ECTA. Yeah.
Okay.
Kathleen, isn't ECTA the one where you put the scores in the computer and it gives you the number or the, are you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's it.
It has the
Okay, yeah, we
buckets.
do use
Yeah.
that.
The
Yeah.
buckets, yeah.
And we do that, but the numbers we plug in come from this. Or that's what I've been doing.
Okay.
So yes, we're doing that.
FEPM uses that as well, in addition to like a pre-post test that we have based off of standards.
Okay, yeah. So maybe next time I would like for everybody to kind of bring your pre-post, what the materials you're using. Maybe we could put it in a shared folder, and so everybody can see, and we can have like a discussion around that. Okay, sorry, Nancy.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Okay, going on to developmentally appropriate practices. And I think we're all doing this. It's the hands-on, the multimodality approaches to things. We use a lot of language experience. There's a series called Read It Once Again. And I think I know they use that some at Tatnall. We use that. And sometimes we make our own materials to teach, adaptive books and those kinds of things. And I'd like to hear what other people are using curriculum-wise. If you're using something in particular.
In Bullock County, our teachers primarily use the Read It Once Again units as well.
Okay, they're really good, and they bring
They really
in,
are. We've done a lot of research over the last few years trying to find a curriculum, and there's just not really anything out there.
there's not, and then
We have looked and looked.
it is, and then we've brought in when the GAA first came out, and we did all that training about adapting books and those kinds of things. We use that as well too, just especially to target when we're working on target vocabulary, and the kids need to see it in another context. Those kinds of things. And also looking at our classrooms are a little bit different. We have a loft in ours so the kids can walk up and down and we can practice depth perception skills, gross motor skills. I'll have to brag on Courtney, who was on. She has developed a great sensory room that she's allowing us to enjoy with swings and just some open space for kids to explore and have a lot of fun. And learn as well. It's been really nice. We're looking at getting some different kind of seating because we're having difficulty getting some kids to sit. So we're looking at some of those chairs that have the bands at the bottom or look like balls that you sit on. Again, does anyone have any suggestions for me along those kinds of lines that you found helpful?
I'm at Tracy Whitaker. I'm at Rinkin. I use cube chairs a lot. I don't know that you
Okay.
know what I'm talking about, the little cube chairs.
Mhm.
You can flip flop them. One side's a little bit higher, one side's a little bit
A
lower.
little bit lower.
Yeah. And for the students that are struggling sitting, sometimes that helps just to have the boundaries of the sides of the chair. So it's not free and open on both sides. So they can just kind of get up and roam and do whatever. And so sometimes those boundaries help a lot with them. That just kind of gives them some guidelines of where they're supposed to be. Does that always work? No, of course not. Because some kids will get up, they're going to get up. So, but those work a lot with the kids. And I have kids that just want to sit in those that don't really need to sit in those. So, and I don't have enough for the whole class. So we always have to kind of share. But those seem to work well in our classroom as well.
Okay.
And again, we have some ball chairs. I don't necessarily like the ball chairs in our room because our kids are very small for them and they like to bounce and play and they don't really sit on the ball chairs either, even just like bouncing in the same place. They don't. We do use those in our motor labs, which are set up by our occupational therapist. And so we'll use those for like bouncing and those type of activities. We don't really use them to sit on.
Gotcha.
Or the students don't sit on them. Sometimes I do, but they don't.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that info. And I think too, setting up our rooms, we do a lot of centers. We'll have a kitchen center, the top of the loft. We have bean bags up there. The kids can take books, or there's some baby dolls there. It's pretty open environment, which gives kids the room, gives us a chance to move the kids from center to center. We have a slide in the room. So we try to, and we've kind of noticed that our kids tend to go to the same center. So we'll try to structure it so we encourage them to go to other places and to have an opportunity to interact with everyone in the class. Sorry about that. And evidence-based practices is our next. And I think with our programs like we're doing, we're really doing that using the Read It Once Again and other programs. We have our specific goals. It's kind of the rigor depends on the individual students, and we take their strengths and needs and their IEP goals and work from that. The resources that are listed there, I've really not had a chance to, the tier 1 and the tier 2s, other than in the jails, I have not had a chance to explore any of those. So I don't know if any of you all were familiar with any of them.
Sorry, I'm not sure what just happened.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, there you go. Are you ready for next slide or?
Yes.
Okay. It's not moving.
And we've talked about that. We can. Okay, and we just finished that. Okay. And a lot of these I am not familiar with. So I was just asking if
I can
anyone-
explain what this is. So
Okay.
when they want you to use evidence-based practices at tier 1, you don't know whether the research is valid or not. So when you are looking for research-based materials that are supposed to be valid, you can go to What Works Clearinghouse, and you can look up the practice or even the materials to see what type of research is behind it, and as well as the Best Evidence Encyclopedia. Of course, the DOE loves the IRIS Center. I'm not a huge IRIS Center fan, but they do like that. And then the Cedar Center, they have created the high leverage practices for teachers to use in special education, and those are called HLPs. So if you've heard of HLPs, those came from the Cedar Center. So you could click on these links or copy and paste them and put them in your computer and go and look and see if the practices you're currently using are considered evidence-based practices, as well as your curriculum materials.
Good deal.
And that's Nicole Talley created this PowerPoint, and so this also is adapted from Tessie Bailey Rose, and she is all about our MTSS. So these are the types of things that you would look at for any sort of tier 1, tier 2 interventions before preschool. And that's a common question. Can we have a quick discussion as to what type of tier 1, tier 2 interventions do you guys use for preschool? And you're gonna have to participate for this to work.
Okay.
Well, I'm in the preschool intervention classroom. So obviously I'm in the most, like, you're at tier 4, you've made it to this classroom. But I know in our general ed classrooms, I mean, with tier 1, I know they're just starting with like large group. I mean, and what strategies they're using with the whole group. Is it effective for student A? So you're talking about, little Tracy, is it working for Tracy? Is it not working for Tracy? So really when they're talking about tier 1 here, they're talking about what they're using for the whole group. They're not doing necessarily anything special for anybody else. I mean, for the student, they're just doing what they're doing for like whole class instruction, or if they're in a small group, what they're doing in small group instruction. They're not doing anything extra. But when they move on to tier 2, I know that, what they're doing is they're looking at, okay, so, Tracy's struggling with writing skills. So maybe I'm going to imitate the line instead of just presenting this line to her that I want her to copy. I'm going to imitate this line for her. I don't necessarily need to do it for everybody else, but I can do this for her and see if that helps her to be successful. So a little more individualized strategies per students. So that's when I think the difference between tier 1 and tier 2 here at our school.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. And so I think what Nicole was trying to say in this last slide, y'all, I'm running 3 different computers to run this thing. I'm sorry. So this last slide is, in the tier 1 for all students for whole group, if you're not using evidence-based practices, then you're going to have some problems meeting the needs of individual learners. We're here at tier 2. Yes. What type of interventions are you doing? So like Tracy said, it appears that they're doing small group strategies. But as you know, with MTSS, there's no tier 4 anymore. So with MTSS, if there is any sort of intervention program out there, I'm not sure if there is for kids as young as 3, they can be receiving services as well as participating with the intervention at the same time. So now, used to, when you left tier 3, and you started receiving services, the intervention stopped, that the special education classroom was the intervention. That's not the case anymore. So I was just curious as to what type of interventions you guys may be using. And you're right, you may not be using any in the your classroom. You can be, but what type of interventions your schools are using at the tier 3 level and beyond?
Now I know here at Marlowe and Effingham, I try to keep an open communication with the preschool teachers, so that if they have questions about the tiers or what they can do on any specific tier to help their student, they feel free to come and ask and try to get ideas that I may use in the classroom, because obviously PSI is more individualized, so we have a little bit more. Like this morning, we had one that came and asked about what she could do for tiers for behavior. She has a student who has behavior issues. What does she need to do to try to set up those tiers? So just try to keep that open communication, not necessarily go in there and intervene as a special ed teacher, but I do want to be there for those preschool teachers so that they can come, because I know that they don't always have that information. They don't always have that language that's not familiar to them. So just trying to keep that open line of communication between pre-K and PSI is a big support for tiers, and as well as with the admin as well.
Definitely.
Jenny, oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen.
No,
Jenny,
keep
what
going.
do you suggest that, because in the community, we constantly have our gen ed pre-K teachers as well as daycare providers for our younger babies coming up to us and saying, I don't know what to do in the classroom. And we do provide interventions and suggestions, but do you guys use like a specific program, or do you suggest a specific website?
Not a specific program. I suggest, like, if I'm using, I have like some, if I have a picture flip chart, I'll show them, like I have some kids with behaviors that use pictures. So I show them where I got the pictures and how I use it in the classroom, where we point to what we should be doing, things like that. And our county as a whole did a really good job with the behavior intervention plan. So they've set up some Google forms that we look at, that there's some steps that we go through. So I kind of show them what that looks like. I tell them, you can't use this, but this is the language that we use. These are some things that you may want to refer to. For example, where is the behavior happening? What is happening in the classroom? Is it a small group? Is it a large group? Is it on the playground? Who is it happening around? Just trying to guide them onto more or less what it looks like. Because I know when I taught regular ed for 3 years, when you're in that environment, you don't really know all that language. You don't know what you're looking for. So it's just kind of more of a guidance. Anything that I have that can kind of narrow it down for them, if that makes sense. Just like those social stories that I might use in my classroom, I'll share with them. I'm trying to think what the picture program, Tracy, what's that picture program called? Where you can make the pictures for, there it is, for this, yes, for the schedules. I'll show them how to make those schedules, things like that. Does that help? I'm sorry.
That does help. And I was going to tell you guys, Vidalia City is not represented here today, but they do have a program that they use that is an RTI MTSS program for preschool intervention. I can see if they had given me a copy of it at one time. That's why I got up to see if I could find it. If I could put it in a shared folder and people can look at it. And that would be a good resource to share with others, because yes, that early intervention is so important. And if we can provide that intervention as early as we can, that'll help from referring more and more kids possibly, or even that helps them in the when they're pushed out into the general ed. So thank you.
Absolutely. And then we're all familiar with the jails and their importance in developing the total child and activities and things to do to promote child development. And of course, then we have the purpose there, the guide teachers who work with the children from birth through 5 and providing the quality learning experiences. And then we can turn to the diagram with the circles.
Okay, yes, and these are the 5 learning domains in the
domains.
GLRS. Yeah, if you're not familiar with these, so these are the 5 domains that align with your outcomes. And then there is this website down at the bottom. It takes you will take you to crosswalks of preschool assessment instruments that can be used with the GELs. And so these crosswalks references functional skills assessed by various instruments. And so this crosswalk is really good. Let's see if we can look at it really quick. Hold on. All right, so here it is. It's the instrument crosswalk. And so there are all kinds of resources here for you. I'm trying to find the crosswalk one. I guess that I'm not really familiar with this website. So here below are all the instrument crosswalks requested by state. So yes, it's all of those. So that would be a great resource for you as well. Yes. Really useful for helping parents to understand that present level of functioning for the kids' IEP development. And the indicator details are also helpful for teachers to ensure that they're planning developmentally appropriate activities for the students. Can you guys see this very well? And it's in your PowerPoint that you have, yeah. Okay.
And then that is an example of an activity to use. And I like it because it kind of gives you vocabulary to use with the students, kind of like a direct instruction. If you notice, a lot of the GELS activities use the same verbiage, just like SRA and other direct instruction programs. And then if you look at that, it kind of puts it all together. You have the GELS and the evidence-based practice, and then the developmentally appropriate practices, and they all kind of intertwine and go together to help us form our program of instruction and activities.
So here, I'm about to ask you guys some questions. So is the instruction provided in the preschool special education classes developmentally appropriate, and how do you know? If not, what are you doing to change this? So that's a discussion I want us to open up and talk about. So how do you know your instruction is developmentally appropriate? And if you don't, how do we change that?
Any takers?
Yeah, please.
I'll say something. I feel like what we do in our classroom here at Rankin is developmentally appropriate. Just from some research of what is developmentally appropriate for preschoolers. I also work for Babies Can't Wait. Just 1 or 2 kiddos. I have for several years. So I see children that are from birth to, up to 5 years old. And so what I do is I gauge my activities. Thank you so much. I gauge my activities. So if we're on the carpet time, we're only sitting for short periods of time. Then we get up and we move around, and then we sit some more. And like if we're working at the table and, they're not cut. We know they're not cutting. I do have some 5-year-olds they're cutting, but I know these 3-year-olds they're coming in are not going to be cutting. So we're gauging that. So they're snipping the paper or just learning how to hold the scissors. So what we do is we just gauge our activities from everything we do, from language to motor, to communication. Everything we do, we gauge it to fit where their needs are. And at this point, we don't have like a set curriculum. So what I do in my room is we just, we'll just pick like our theme or whatever kind of what we're going to study for the week. And all of our activities rotate around that. But if we have a fun, like this week we were doing orange and we were painting and we were working on line invitation. We were using Q-tips to paint And they just that we were using orange paint to do that just on paper. I mean, so you're working that theme in, but you're also working on those skills that they need. But you're meeting them where they are. Some of them are not there yet. You know, some of them, you could present them a line, they're able to copy that line. Some of them, they have to have that imitation. Some of them need hand over hand. And so I feel like we're meeting them where they are on the skills that we're working on in the classroom.
Okay, somebody else. Thank you, Tracy.
Can I say, we really don't have a set curriculum. I'm in the PSI in Recent and Blandford and Effingham. But as Tracy said, we do have some standards we're working on, the pre-K standards, and we break those down to where the child is. So I have a 3-year-old who's awesome with all the ABCs and counting and such, but I have a 4-year-old that I had last year who still does not even match ABCs. So we're working on matching them in groups of 4, and we use tactile cards so they can feel the letters and also see the letters and put them together. So it's really a matter of, I think the standards we're teaching are appropriate and they're going to be useful, but being able to identify where a child is not catching on and how to break those tasks down and teach them piece by piece so that they can, you know, master those skills.
Yeah, that's so a lot of you are saying you don't have a curriculum. And this is maybe my misunderstanding, but I thought the GELDS was a curriculum. Is it not? Can somebody explain that to me?
I think we're thinking in terms of when you, typically when I taught older levels of special ed, we purchased a curriculum with the books and the workbooks and the videos or whatever to go with it. And we don't have a set like that, but we do have a wealth of resources to use.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Harvey on that. We're in the same county. And I do use the GELDS. That's what we base our goals and objectives from when we write their IEPs. But we're not held to the standards that the general ed pre-K classes are for the GELDS.
Right.
As far as the work, what is it called? The work sampling online and all that kind of stuff that they have to do, that we don't have to do that. We do have to keep our data for their goals and objectives that are in their IEP. And we have work samples for those things, but we don't have we're not using the same system. We're not locked into it. I guess I should say like general ed pre-K is locked into it. But when we write their goals and objectives for their IEPs, we go from those GELDS, we go from that GELDS curriculum. And a lot of things that we do in the classroom. I mean, and when they have extra stuff in their pre-K classes at our school, they'll always share it with me. Like if they get an extra CD or they have extra stuff, and like their little social emotional posters that they use, we use those in our classroom as well. But we're just not locked in, I don't think, as much as like the general ed pre-K classes.
Okay, and thank you. And we have Amy Taylor who said we do not have a specific curriculum. We do use GELD, so I use the IEP goals and developmental levels. Ms. Harvey and Tracy are on the same page as we are. So that must be about what everybody's doing. How many of you use the age anchoring chart? Do any of you use that? No? Okay. I'm gonna get that, and that might that's a really interesting way to figure out how to explain to parents about their age, where they are and where they should be moving to, and it provides lots of visuals. So I'll get that for you too as well. Okay, thank you guys for participating. And Susan says we do the same as Amy Taylor. Thank you guys. All right.
Kathleen, what you were just saying about the age anchoring chart, I think it's really good to kind of show also.
Oh, I lost you. Hold on. Wait, your microphone's covered up.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's also kind of important for us to share parents that they might have a 4-year-old child that is developing closer to a 2-year-old child, and they're getting frustrated about the certain behaviors and lack of communication skills. And when they have that visual in front of them, the lights kind of go off with the parents, and it kind of helps explain to them, why we're expecting shorter sentences and different things like that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I love that chart. So Tyler, you guys use that?
I don't, CJ or Monica, do we use that specific one? We have a couple of ages and stages charts that we actually got from the CDC.
Mhm.
Have you guys seen all those resources that are available?
Those are the same ones that
Yeah.
we use. We use the ones from the CDC as
Okay.
well.
We-
Yeah, those are great. You
Yeah.
can just order a ton of free
Right.
ones, and I think they're a great visual.
Yes.
They also have an app now that you can download on your phone. And I encourage parents to download it because you put in your child's information, and then it's just like a checklist, and it tells you what to do next, or how to go back and do what's missing, and how to go forward and work on that next objective. So it's great for parents to have because they're easy to understand.
Oh, and so what is the name of that app? That's great. Do you know?
It's through the CDC. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, and then just throw it in the chat when you found
Okay.
it. That'd be great. Thank you.
Perfect.
And Kathleen, I put this in the chat, but just another thing that maybe we can think about talking about next time that I could present is the VB map. And that's a program that I know the autism classes use it in Chatham, but now a lot of the preschool intervention classes are using it too. And it tracks milestones kind of across 17 different areas. So it looks at like receptive language versus expressive. It looks at social skills, motor skills, group skills, behavior. And, when we know that students may be developing at age level in some areas and then have significant deficits in other areas, it breaks it down just a little bit more clearly, and they graph it, and you can create goals and things off of it. So it's something I can show to you, but if any of the staff in here have used it and want to chime in, feel free.
We primarily use the ABLES in Bullitt County instead of VB Map. We have used VB Map before, but tend to use the ABLES most often now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
To kind of piggyback on what Amanda was saying, we're kind of pushing more what she was saying about using it with our PSI babies, not just with a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, because a lot of our language delayed kids present almost like our ASD babies at first. So that really is a great tool as well.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This is the type of conversation that we want to have. I mean, I know we've got this PowerPoint that Nicole wanted us to do, but yeah, we want you guys
really
discussing don't you think, Nancy, that you guys should all be discussing and talking and what you may need, what you may not need. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you 28 quiet people. I hear about, there's a lot of you here. Y'all talk up and make this your group.
I'm sorry. One good resource that I've tapped into is, I don't know if everybody has like a reading mentor in your county or a guided reading teacher in your county. Not necessarily reading recovery, but like a lead reading teacher. Because I asked for help for like three-year-olds, what would promote literacy in our 3-year-olds, because it's a little bit, difficult, especially if you're coming down from a different grade into 3 and 4-year-olds, to really understand that pre-writing, pre-reading skill set. And so they're a good resource. She really helped me find some information. Even though they're coming out of the regular ed population, she really researched and came in and showed me how to do a lesson on pre-writing and pre-reading. So if you have that type of person in your county that does that literacy, I think that's a good, valuable resource to use, especially if you're coming to PSI for the first time. Because I know when we first come in there, you're kind of like, whoa, wait, these kids don't, where do we start?
Would your person be willing to do, not in one of our consortium meetings, but just to do a virtual presentation on how to do some of that for our new teachers?
Oh yeah, I'm sure I will ask and see, because we
Okay.
do have several throughout the county that focus just on literacy and reading. Now they are the
That would
general
be
ed
great.
they are the general ed population, but we can adapt it to our population as well.
Right, definitely.
I'll
I mean,
I'll
just getting that information, yeah.
Okay, I'll definitely
Now-
ask.
Okay, thank you. That would be fabulous if we could facilitate that for our new teachers, and anybody that would want it. That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so she wants us to talk about disproportionality. So there you go, Miss Nancy.
Okay, here we go. And I was really surprised at the statistic that preschoolers are 3 times more likely to be expelled than K-12 students. That really surprised me. We do not have that problem here, but they relate it back to social and emotional skills. And something that came about because of that was the BB Quip, and talking about behaviors and the function of behaviors. And I had a handout about the function of behaviors: escape, attention, tangible rewards, and sensory. What I really wanted to focus on would be the BB Quip, which is the behavior intervention plan for our the younger children. And I put a copy of it in our handouts, and I won't go into all of it because along with Jill's training, they do the training called Unpacking the Pyramid, and that is what that is about. And I'll just go back a little bit because I've gotten a little bit sidetracked here. Important factors to repeated patterns of behavior, and I guess that's our problem here with some of our kids. We seem to have the same problem over and over again. Other challenging behaviors. And I think that goes back to our curriculum and setting up our classrooms, giving the breaks that the students need. But I was going to ask if behaviors are a problem with you all. What do you guys use as a timeout? Or
Okay, so yeah, so when you're looking at disproportionality, if you have children who are being referred or disciplined more than others in a specific group, then you can be considered disproportionate. And believe it or not, you still need to look at this area so that you don't become disproportionate. So what are you guys using for your discipline, the way you discipline your students and maybe restore their behavior? So what are you guys using at your school systems?
Can I say, as I trained first to be an EBD teacher years ago, and one of the things that I told my parents then, and I tell these parents now, is that we're getting these children in this classroom because of their needs. So that unlike in a pre-K classroom, if I have a child who refuses to follow instructions or throws a book or does any other thing that might get them in trouble in a pre-K class, I'm not calling mom and dad about that. I think that's part of our job, to address those concerns and work on them. And then the flip side of that, of course, is to set up that child's day so that they are able to be successful. So if they don't want to sit down on the carpet at calendar time, then we start with just keeping them on the carpet near where they're supposed to sit and reinforce that, and reinforce those successive approximations to the behavior, so that eventually you get them to sit down. If it means sitting there with a cup of Skittles and they sit through a song and they get a Skittle until we get through calendar time. So we work on it in tiny steps. But the other part of that is I just feel real strongly about not treating their delays as disciplinary concerns so much.
Good deal.
Yes, thank you for sharing.
And to piggyback on what Ann just said, I mean, a lot of the same things, but, we use just, we always start with simple strategies as just with a redirection or a cue, a verbal redirection, a touch on the shoulder, teacher proximity, just things that, pretty much most of us are doing all day long anyway, when they're with you. I mean, when you're in their classroom and they're happy, the ones that are going to struggle a little bit more. So you're going to stand closer to them when you're walking to lunch. You're going to make them your partner. You're going to give them something to carry. They get to carry the cubby with the, with the supplies in it. So you're going to do those little tiny things to hopefully prevent the behaviors from occurring in the first place.
Right.
Things that you're doing anyway.
Yeah. Transitions are a big problem for us for some kids. And so we found that using maybe picture schedules, object schedules, those kinds of things tend to help out our kids. And if our routine has changed, we try to have a visual or a picture for that, so that, and we talk and explain, and use our vocabulary. First, we're going to do this, then we're going to do that. That kind of stuff really helps ours. If they can see it, hear it, touch it, tends to maybe prevent some breakdowns.
I think visuals are invaluable. Visuals for promoting Amanda.
Yeah.
I feel like my other master's is in Velcro and lamination and printing. Visuals for promoting positive behavior. And I've actually printed out some with our elementary teachers, even though I'm just specific to preschool intervention. Visuals with even articulation. I mean, all those visuals, if y'all walk into, well, I'm sure a lot of you guys are in school, so you already have a lot of visuals around the classroom, but even choice boards, that's huge. Giving them a choice of specific activities that they like. But I feel like with a lot of our babies, we can talk all day long and ask them, do you want to do Play-Doh or play in the sandbox? They have to see it. There's that disconnect between that auditory processing, especially with our language delayed babies and our babies that are having a fit right then.
Yeah, and just their brain development and all. I mean, they're just not developmentally there on the typical milestones of development. And then on top of it, they're behind. So yes, we had some comments from Amy Dale Taylor and Amy Busby. So Amy Dale Taylor uses a quiet chair that sets them away from the group. And she does not call the parents either. She tries to handle it in her classroom, and they redirect and sit or stand closer to them. April Busby says she uses positive reinforcement more than anything to encourage desired behaviors. And once we praise others and provide a Skittle, the other kids quickly catch on and usually comply. And Allie Coleman said, I agree with April. Candy usually does the trick for us too. I will say if the candy stops working, it's because something on the inside hasn't been met. I've done a lot of study on engagement and that sort of thing. And so candy can be a quick temporary fix, But you're right. We've got to make them feel like they belong and that their needs are met. And a lot of times those communication needs, they just don't know how to communicate, or they're not understanding, like what Tyler was just saying. So those visuals are a big must to try to get that other processing modality working.
I think it's a great opportunity too for, we talked about how, in tier 1, it's just large group and everything is geared toward the large group. But when you're going into tier 2, you're looking at a little more individualized strategy. And, I was thinking about an example I had at the beginning of this year. I have a friend who is with me half a day, and he's in the general ed pre-K class half a day. And he was having problems with throwing wood chips on the playground. And so I just wrote a social story for him, super simple, about when I go to the playground at school. And basically when I go to the school, I won't read it to you, but basically I wrote a really super simple, a really simple social story about not throwing the wood chips on the playground. And I made a copy for me and we read it. I made a copy for his pre-K teacher who read it as soon as they got outside before he played. He read the story with her. It took less than a minute because it's so short. And then I made a copy for his parents. And his parents also read it with him. And within a week, he had stopped throwing the wood chips. So, hey, Miss Debbie. And so that was a strategy that just worked for him. Is it going to work for everybody? Maybe not. But it did work for him. And everybody was on board with it. Like all of his people were on board with it. His general ed teacher, his special ed teacher, and his parents. And so I think he was just hearing it from everywhere. He probably was like, okay. I just won't throw the wood chips.
Yeah.
And I think like first then boxes are good tools to use in interventions and in the regular ed and special ed room, especially for your autistic children or behavior children. First you do this, then you get to open your box and pull an activity that you like out. And they learn to put the box away and do the next step. It's just a really easy thing that they can control because they understand first I have to do the work, then I can pull out my box. And it's regular teachers seem to like it because it's quiet. And if they're good with it, they just pull it out and then put it up with simple reminders.
Guys, we're going to run out of time, so we're not going to go through the rest of this PowerPoint. Yeah, don't you think we should just show the resources?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so these were just some of the resources they provided us. And like I said, you have this PowerPoint, and most of this stuff already. The professional development opportunities, it would be big. If you want to attend some of these, this would be really good. But what I really want to focus on after you look at these, not just questions, but what would you like to see in our next consortium meeting? So McColl's created these PowerPoints. This is our first one. We didn't know how it would really run. Now that I'm seeing the length of the PowerPoint and everything, it's, I don't know. Miss Nancy and I were going to get together and plan this a little bit better, but I got the flu. So I'm sorry about that. But in the chat box, what are some things you would like to see occur and us discuss as a group our next consortium meeting?
Kathleen.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to type this in because I don't know how many people would be interested. This was just something I was thinking of. We have a lot of preschool intervention children and a lot of different options, but we're always looking for better ways to serve them. What is their LRE? Could we come up with some kind of maybe a presentation where one person from each county would talk about the options for how they serve their kids, and then others could ask questions about how that works or how they made that work, just to maybe give some more options of or models and least restrictive environment for kids. I know, like our 3-year-olds, Suzette and I talk all the time. I'm like, those kids probably need to only be half day and not every day. Typical 3-year-olds don't go to school all day every day. And so we work on that, but that's not always the case. What are other people doing with 3-year-olds? Do you have a separate autism class for preschool, or do you have them all integrated together? Do you use the pre-K inclusion model? How does that look? Just different. I mean, not to spend like 30 minutes on each county, but just to have, I don't know, maybe we could just put it together in a PowerPoint if everybody has 1 or 2 slides and then talks for a few minutes. I'd like to just hear if the group thinks that would be beneficial, or if that's just me.
Okay. Other people chime in on that? Okay, I've got one. I think this is a great idea.
Kathleen, I would also like to hear from different systems about how their process of meeting with Babies Can't Wait and transitioning the 3-year-olds, about how, and their timeline about how they get the school information and set up hearing and visions, and then what they do when parents don't return those packets, and at what time they get consent to evaluate.
Okay, so what I am seeing are some fabulous discussion ideas and great ways to share this out. So what if I sent you guys a Google form, and you type these ideas in the Google form with all the details that you want, and then Nancy and I will get together and we'll contact you and find out some of these, and then create resource folders as well as discussion prompts and that sort of thing for this group. Would that work for everyone? Okay. What about Child Find? Yes, Child Find. Yes,
yes,
okay.
I think that's a great idea. I have actually spent some time over the last few years calling around to different counties, trying to get, just trying to find out what everyone else is doing. And, as we're trying to, tweak our processes a little bit. And, I know there's always better ways to do things. So, but that would be very helpful if everyone in this group could come together and do that.
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea. And so I would like to just really make you guys a network for each other, so we can even have some sort of discussion, or some sort of, I'm looking at one camera, not the other, some sort of email blast. So like if you ever have a question for the group, you can send it to me. And then, because I've got one big email group, and I can just shoot it out to the group and y'all reply to each other. So I'm going to put in the chat my email in case you guys don't have it. And like I said, I can send emails out to every one of you very, very quickly. So as you have questions for the entire group, shoot it to that email and I'll send it out. But in the meantime, I'll create that Google folder and get it to you guys. All right. I also want to, what about the list of everyone's names count? I'm fine with doing that. Is everybody okay with me sharing your information out? Okay. There were a couple of you, let me see really quick, who gave me let me just see really quick. Okay. That person didn't come. Okay, and I got that person. Okay. On the registration, you gave me your personal email, and so I'd rather it be your work email. I do have for you guys a quick evaluation of today. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. Please be nice and realize this was our first meeting. All right, there's the evaluation. And I'm super excited about getting this more organized. And I know we only scheduled like 3 meetings, but we can always schedule more if we feel like that we want more. And I really like the idea, if you have anybody that can share, like what Jenny said about the guided reading, or somebody who would be willing to share with the group, I could just have, hey, sign up for this. Everybody come join virtually. And Amanda may do that with some of the VB math. If you want to hear about it, she may do a presentation for the group. So it doesn't always have to be in our meetings, but it'll be a good resource for you.
Now, what if she just records like herself doing a lesson? Can I just upload that for you guys?
Yeah, actually, if you want to send it to me, I can post it on our First District RESA website.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that would be fabulous, and everybody would have that'd be available for everybody. And if you're really good at something for preschool, record yourself. I know that you're all going to jump and do that for me. Well, I want to thank Miss Nancy for taking the lead on this. And this it's 11:30 now. So unless you guys have any questions, if you will just complete that evaluation, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week and weekend.
Good deal. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.